As promised, it is time for a final roster projection for the Dallas Cowboys. Days away from roster cuts being due, and maybe just a couple hours away from starting to get some word on who ends up getting cut for the Dallas Cowboys. We'll break down the projection and a practice squad projection, which is never going to be 100% right because they always sign outside guys to that group. Now, there might not be a YouTube push notification today due to too much content in the past 24 hours. So, assuming that happens, help us out. Share today's video on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever. Tell your friends it's out. Help us continue to help me feed my family by sharing today's show. All right, let's go to the quarterbacks. Number 1, Dak Prescott. Number 2, Joe Milton. That's all I'm going to do. I think the Cowboys saw enough from Joe Milton the third preseason game to convince themselves that he can be the backup quarterback, and they'll have a little wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Yeah, Will Grier, you'll be on the practice squad. Don't worry about that. So I'm going with 2 quarterbacks, so already a change from my one going into the third and final preseason game. I have no idea what's going to happen in the backfield. Javonte Williams, Jaydon Blue, Hunter Luepke will be on this team. There's a chance it's only those 3. There's a chance it is still Phil Mafah, who we'll discuss. I don't think he's going to make the team. Miles Sanders and Jaydon Blue are both now banged up, so depending on the exact severity, maybe the Cowboys elect to kind of move in the direction of they do keep Deuce Vaughn, who might offer a little bit more special team stuff. Plus, Deuce Vaughn kept working ahead of Phil Mafah throughout the preseason and also worked ahead of Jaydon Blue, which I found pretty darn interesting from that perspective. I don't feel confident on this front. I am not convinced this will end up being a Cowboys scenario where they keep these bottom 2 guys. I honestly don't know. This was the hardest thing, and Deuce Vaughn was actually the last player I made on this roster. He's in the mix more than some want to admit, but by no means is he anything other than a bubble player right now, and for valid reason too. All right, the wide receiver room. I made a change here too because I made a big change at corner we'll discuss. CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, KaVontae Turpin, Jalen Tolbert hovering between safe and lock. I'm actually going to go with Ryan Flournoy over just Jalen Brooks. The Cowboys go with the younger, more recently invested in draft pick, who offers you more as a pass catcher, although Brooks played pretty well in the final game. I think Brooks would have a better shot of making it down to the practice squad too. Jonathan Mingo will begin the year on IR because he'll be back at some point early in the season, 4 or 5 weeks, whatever. I ended up switching and going 1 less. This, again, if you want to go 6 receivers, you probably got to cut a running back because there's not a lot of other spaces to go around on the team. So do the Cowboys end up carrying 6 wide receivers? Y for yes, N for no. Let me know in the comments section of today's show, Y or M. The injuries to Luke Schoonmaker and Brevin Spann-Ford kind of made me think, well, maybe I should make room for Princeton Fant. Again, I feel like it's pick your 6th receiver, 4th tight end, or 4th running back in terms of who's going to be on the roster. I went 3 tight ends because Hunter Luepke can play tight end too. Offensive line time. Some changes here to get to. First up, the starters not going to change when healthy. Guyton, Smith, Beebe, Booker, Steele. Duh, we all know it. Nathan Thomas is a lock. I think Brock Hoffman is safe. He played pretty deep into the game, but that might have just been out of necessity from a roster numbers perspective. I think TJ Bass is on the bubble. Hakeem Adeniji is on the bubble. He didn't play, though, in the final preseason game. He could be a wink, wink, nudge, nudge practice squad guy, but they clearly like him because they didn't put him on the practice, or they didn't make him play. Johnny Cornelius was a draft pick. He played well in the preseason. I don't think he's going to make it through waivers. I don't think you can risk cutting him. Of all the guys we're talking about, he'd be the one I would be most concerned about. Of note, this means I did jeopardize Awesome Richards to waivers, which he played really deep in the game, and he says he wants to be a guard, but he's better at tackle, and the Cowboys kind of have better tackle options. So I would not be surprised, even if it is kind of more of the surprise category, if Richards does not get kept. Otherwise, you're cutting Bass or Cornelius right now, it feels like. Now, today's show is made possible by Prize Picks. Preseason football is underway. College football is here, so do not miss any of the action this season on Prize Picks. It's simple to play. You pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in to 2,000 times your money. Keep an eye out for the max discounts that are available too. Dak Prescott, I almost merged all three words together somehow, is a half passing yard for week 1 of the regular season. Come on, that's a no-brainer. My power play that I've got here, obviously the freebie with Dak at a half passing yard. Xavier Worthy, more than 3.5 yards on the ground, thinking jet sweep action. Ashton Jeanty, more than a half rushing or receiving touchdown, so anytime TD there for Jeanty. If you haven't already, go download the PrizePicks app today over at prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Link will be in the comments section and the description of today's show. It's prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS to get that $50 once you play 5 in lineups. I really waffled on the 6th edge rusher spot. Micah, Dante, Nealon, Izaraku, Sam Williams, obviously going to be on the roster. The reason in the end I went with Peyton Turner over a Tyrus Sweet and over a James Houston, who I would have kept if I were in charge. The reason I went with Peyton Turner, felt like he was the first one to not check back into the game, which makes me think he is ahead of them. They also paid him more, and we know how the Cowboys like to do business. He also probably offers you a bit more against the run, which you have guys that are already good pass rushers that do the same thing James Houston does. He might get claimed, though. All right, defensive line. Osa, Solomon Thomas, our locks. I think Mazi Smith is safe. There's been enough smoke that makes you go, maybe not, and also makes me wonder about, what next year looks like for Mazi Smith. I went back and forth between Toia and Perrion Winfrey. The reason why I went with Toia in the end, even though I think you can make an argument Winfrey might have been the best of all three, he came out around the same time Mazi Smith did. And the Cowboys were throwing Winfrey out there as a stand-up edge, which he's obviously not going to do in a game that matters, but they clearly were like, it's fine, which indicates, I think, where he is in the pecking order. He actually did fine, but I feel like they're going to be inclined to go with Mazi and Toia. For now, I would not rule out a veteran addition along the defensive line. In fact, I would like to have that happen. You got to cut one of these guys almost assuredly. So who is it? MS for Mazi Smith, JT for Toia, PW for Perrion Winfrey. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Maybe someone like, a Justin Barron can surprise and force his way onto the 53-man roster. But I think Jack Sanborn, Reese Leofau, Kenneth Murray, Damone Clark are going to be your linebackers in an emergency. You could always head down there and throw a Marquise Bell in that spot. All right, corner. Deron Bland, Kyer Elam, Andrew Booth, I'm pretty sure are going to be on this team. We'll come back to the Diggs conversation here in a minute. For now, I am going to put him on here. I don't know if he will, if we're going to keep him on PUP or not. We'll find out in a few days. I think Israel Mukwamu is actually more on the bubble than I previously acknowledged. I think Keemon Hall is on the bubble. I think Zion Childress is a possibility there. I went with Izzy in the end because he can play every single secondary spot. I think that stuff is valuable, but he's on the bubble. Hall's on the bubble. There's like 2 spots between Izzy and Hall, but Childress too, and maybe Troy Pride, but I'd be kind of surprised there. Kalen Carson we'll discuss too. The Cowboys have a decision to make here with Diggs. He thinks he'll be ready before week 4. If that's the case, you probably justify not putting him on PUP. That does mean you have to open up a roster spot somewhere because you're activating him from that PUP list. I would love it if Diggs were back sooner than later because the secondary needs him real bad. And if they don't have him, it's kind of a bad room, frankly. So will Trevon Diggs be ready for week 1? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. A for yes, B for no. Let me know in the comments section if you think Diggs will be ready for week 1. I don't really know what's going to happen with Kalen Carson. He's hurt again. Would be ready around week 1. I think from a numbers game, they might just maybe they cut a veteran and like a Hakeem Adeniji and then put Kalen Carson on IR to they have to do the numbers game if they put extras on IR. Savone Revel is not going to be ready for week 1. He's going to start the year on the NFI list. Josh Butler, I think they're just going to stash on the PUP list for a little bit. But between Diggs and Carson, there's some decisions that are going to be made there that impact the rounding out of the roster. All right, safety doesn't require much conversation. Blake Hooker, Donovan Wilson, Marquise Bell, Wanye Thomas, you're on the team. I'd be blown away if any of those guys got cut. They're all pretty safe at this particular moment with where they currently sit. Last 3 players, you know who they are to come. But we will have more coverage for you on the Cowboys Report, the news, the injuries, the updates, all of that. 752 subs away from 220K. Help us get there. Hit that sub button for me right now. All right, next up on the roster projection, Brandon Aubrey, Brian Anger, Trent Sig. Lock. I mean, come on. There's no conversations to be had there. All 3 of those players will end up on your 53-man roster. So the players that I would be most worried about getting claimed based on these projections I had, Phil Mafah, I would bet, maybe I'm only getting like, minus 120 or something, that all the running backs you end up cutting don't get claimed. Like outside of like Blue and Williams and Luepke as a fullback, I think they would actually all clear waivers. I get that teams want backs, but Phil Mafah was a late 7th round pick. That is indicative of how the league views him. They kind of tried to hide him in the 3rd preseason game. He had a couple really good runs. That matters, but I don't know if teams would be like, yeah, we got to claim that guy. But we'll see what happens. Princeton Fant helps on special teams, is a good blocker. Sneaky shot there. Austin Richards is a draft pick, period, along the offensive line. Those guys always get looks. I would think if you waived Austin Richards, someone's going to claim him. Perrion Winfrey, I don't think he counts as a vested veteran. Showcased some good stuff. Was a former high draft pick, but UFL, so we'll see. James Houston, he was so productive in the preseason. Teams are always desperate for pass rushers. I think there's a real chance he gets claimed. Zion Childress impressed me. I think he has a better chance of getting through waivers than Julius Wood did. James Houston, though, reminds me of the Isaiah Land scenario. So, if any, how many players from the Cowboys who get released over the next, couple days here actually end up getting claimed on waivers? I'm essentially projecting 2 here when we get to our practice squad projections, but let me know in the comments section how many Cowboys players, if any, get claimed on waivers. All right, practice squad. Will Grier, Phil Mafah, Trayshawn Holden, Jaydon Brooks, Princeton Fant. I think Mafah clears waivers. Will Grier's a vested veteran. I think Holden clears waivers too. He had no guaranteed money essentially outside of the very, very cheap signing bonus. There was not much interest there. Jalen Brooks is a former NFL player, like actual game day roster, outside chance. If he does get claimed, I would go with Jalen Cropper. We'll come back to tight end later, by the way. Lyle Collins, Sadiq Charles, both veteran offensive linemen, would not have to go through waivers, so they would be like, we got you covered there. Tommy Akinbasote was a draft pick. Didn't do really anything. I think he clears waivers. Winfrey, we'll see, but I think he does. Denzel Daxon is your freebie, by the way. He is your freebie player at the International Player Pathway Program element. So you get 17, not 16 because of Daxon, who's not going to get claimed. Other players, Tyrus Wheats, outside shot he gets claimed, but I think he makes it through. Justin Barron had a pretty big signing bonus. That's one to monitor there. Rivaldo Fairweather, I went out of order because I made changes to this late in the process. I liked what I saw from him. I don't think he's going to make the 53, but I would like to keep him on my practice squad if I could. Troy Pride Jr. gets to stick around as a corner. Zion Childress, Elijah Clark, 2 names to certainly monitor just because of the numbers game they're going to have to play at those spots, but they did some good stuff. Clark, I liked a lot of what I saw from him in the final preseason game. And then C.J. Goodwin, back again as a practice squatter who will be a game day call for 3 weeks, and then we'll see if they have to cut somebody else. I would not be shocked if Goodwin made the 53, but kind of feel like that'd be wasting a spot. I would rather have go to somebody else.